All right, here with another deck tech. I've kind of zoomed in a little bit closer because I feel, why not? I call this one the Darkest Timeline. It's basically a medium black deck. I've kind of made some changes where I think it's more in line with what I want to do, and really I've built it around this ability. Reality Smasher is close, right? It's the Ward Discard a Card ability. Westgate Regent is the best of these creatures in our deck. Whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter it unless that player discards a card. So we're going to be playing a strategy where we try and just get our opponents empty-handed, play some big threats, and go to town. Reality Smashers almost has that ability, except it only counts spells, not abilities. So a Planeswalker or something could destroy Reality Smasher. But Haste and Trample, pretty good otherwise. So I want to show you guys the points in the deck. So we have two 4-point cards in the deck. Sol Ring is 4 points, Mana Crypt is 4 points. Both are artifacts, both add 2 mana. Sol Ring does it at no cost other than the 1 mana up front. Mana Crypt does it at a cost of 0, but every upkeep you have to flip a coin. Sometimes it does 3 to you, sometimes it does 0 to you. So it's kind of a risk versus reward thing, and it's definitely worth it. Mana Vault is a 1-point card, as is Mind Twist. Mana Vault will give us 3 colorless, but it doesn't untap unless we pay 4 in our upkeep. It's a trigger. 1, and then Mind Twist. This is a card that is 1 point, and it's sometimes thought, oh, maybe it shouldn't be a point, maybe it could. With all this fast mana we're playing, it really goes in line with what Mind Twist is wanting to do. You want to get ahead by making them discard multiple cards, not just one. And Mind Twist emptying their hand is going to make it very hard for them to target our creatures with Ward. So that is the reason behind these points, and these mana artifacts are what make our deck a medium deck. When you look at Sol Ring and this 2 colorless mana, that's what you should be thinking for all your creatures. So if I do this on turn 1, turn 2 I can drop a 4-drop, right? That's really what we're trying to do, just get ahead of our opponent. So I'm going to show you guys some of the creatures in this deck that help us close the game. So creatures, big part of the deck. There's 34 here, and I just wanted to go over some of them. So a big reason I like the Stonecoil Serpent is because it scales so well. Just that single X cost. You draw this on turn 5. Yeah, you can cast it as a 6/6, maybe a 7/7. And then early, maybe it's a 3/3. These abilities, really, really good on it. Throw a sword on this guy, he's doing great. Deathrite Shaman, graveyard control, a little bit of mana ramp occasionally, but I wouldn't count on it for that. Mostly you're playing this to do exile the sorcery or instant from a graveyard. Each opponent loses 2 life. Knight of the Ebon Legion, you can sometimes lose 4 life as well. It's just a good mana sink, getting +3/+3 in Death Touch. Dothi Voidwalker works well with all of your discard spells. Jadar, I like this as just recurable or continuous threats on your opponent, as well as an early drop for 3 power. Null Priest is good early or late with Menace and Lifelink and that regenerate clause. Skyclave Shade, again, just another recurring threat. It's a 3/1. If it dies, just get a landfall trigger and play it again. Turok Dread Cantor, I think the main ability is protection from white, but of course he does have the Hinted Turok on it as well. Our Graveyard Trespasser we've seen. Hunted Nightmare, it's an undercosted 4/5 with Menace, and I think you can usually just kill the creature that gets the Death Touch counter and just be right out there with a very early 4/5 for 3 mana. As well, if you get a Dark Ritual draw, you just get this guy out turn 1. Jaren, Corrupted Bishop. Oh yes, and I would like to note, just please try and see all the 2s has the Ancient Tomb mana. This guy is basically a 3/4, 3 power and 4 toughness with the creature he makes. Sometimes you can flip it. You do lose life. You do have life link on a lot of your guys, so you can try and manage that. But really, we're just playing him as a pretty good 2/3 with a mana sink. Matter Reshaper, this is the first Eldrazi we have where we require the colorless. Can be some nice card advantage, just a good aggressive early drop. Good removal spell. Really big lifelinker. This guy's power is very easily 2. That's like any land it goes in your opponent's graveyard. But it's often, I think, a 4/3 at least. Opposition Agent, way to stop your opponents from searching. Plague Engineer for tribal strategies. Rotting Register to be a big toughness and power beatstick. Vargoth, this guy I think I'll spend a little bit of time on. He has Death Touch and Boast, which means when you attack, you can pay this cost, and then target player gets to Vampiric Tutor. So typically you can target yourself, although if you have the Opposition Agent, you can target your opponent. This guy, as an early drop with your Soul Ring mana, and then just being able to Vampiric Tutor, the best card on top of your deck, I think is really strong. As well, he's pretty durable. He's a 2/3. I mean, he's going to be able to get in a lot of combat. He has Death Touch. Woe Strider, good creature, comes with a body, comes back with Escape. Really strong. Desecration Demon. One of the demons with a downside where sometimes you just want to be able to hit your opponent dead and they just have elves they can sacrifice or something just to grow your guy, but I think Desecration Demon still warrants a spot in this deck. Gisa, Glorious Resurrector. Another new creature from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. If a creature an opponent controls would die, you exile it instead. So this is like a Leyline of the Void for creatures. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you put all of those cards onto the battlefield under your control. They gain Decay, which means they can really only attack once. But this is an easy way just to flood your board with all your removal spells on their creatures. And you don't have to attack with them. You can just keep them in play on your side if they're like a mana dork or something. Gaunty. Really like this guy. I've talked about him before in other videos, but just that, get that card advantage and it doesn't go to your hand. Grief, good discard. Kalidas, Trader of Get. You do have some vampires or zombies. All your decayed tokens are zombies, so at end of combat you could sack them if you want. As well as lifelink, as well as exiling your opponent's creatures that die. Pretty good. Rankle Master Pranks. Haste is the best part on this guy, and then just the ability to choose these modes. You can choose the sacrifice, the decayed zombie mode. Ravenous Chupacabra. Good way to destroy creatures. Spawn of Mayhem. We're doing damage to ourselves. We're doing damage to our opponent. Hopefully we get Spectacle, and he grows when we're below 10. Trample is the best keyword on this guy. Thorn of the Black Rose. So we do have some Monarchy cards in this deck. We are hoping that we're aggressive enough that we're on the front foot and we can retain the Monarchy. But it's really good to have. Thought Not Seer, second Eldrazi, good way to get some hand control. Custodialich, the second Monarch card you'll see. They sacrifice. The Reality Smasher, really important in this deck. Shriekmaw, a little bit of evasiveness or just an early removal spell. Turgid, the God of Fright. I think often you play this as a 4/5 menace, but if you're late game and you just have a lot of mana and maybe the board's gummed up, you can play it on the backside just to be able to tap the Lantern, pay 4 mana to untap the Lantern, tap the Lantern again, force them to be discarding or sacking things. The Westgate Regent, I think, my favorite creature in the deck. Flying. Ward, discard a card. Hopefully our opponent won't be able to discard the card, so he's basically hexproof. And then when he deals combat damage to a player, put that many 1/1 counters on it, so he keeps doubling in size. And then Secret Creature on the deck. I put Ob Nixilis of the Black Oath here. He's really a 5-mana demon that loses us 2 life, but it does keep a planeswalker around. And then we can just +2, -2, +2, -2 each turn, make 5/5s. Hopefully our opponent is dead shortly after. So that's the creatures in the deck. And I think, yeah, like the important thing to note is we're not playing like Phyrexian Obliterator. We're playing a lot of cards that have this Ancient Tomb mana, all these 2s in the side, 3s in the side, so that we can get them ahead with the early mana rocks. I wanted to highlight some of our lands here. We do have a fair amount of basics, some fetches for Revolt, things like that, or the Deathrite Shaman in the deck. So there are certainly some reasons to do those. But I want to focus a lot on some of the colorless lands that we have. Ancient Tomb, this adds 2 colorless. This is helping us get ahead of the curve. Same with City of Traders, it adds 2. Of course, if you play another land, you're going to sacrifice it. So depending where you want to play it. Rishadan Port helps us shut it. It adds colorless, which is important for some of the Eldrazi, as you've seen. And then it does help us tap target lands. Now, if we're ahead on mana, this effect can put us it can put our opponent behind on mana as opposed to us ahead. So if we've already dumped our hand, this just helps keep our opponent off kilter. You can color restrict them. Throne of the High City, good way to get the Monarchy, as well as providing colorless. Gemstone Caverns, I talked about this when I was going over the artifacts. I think if you're willing to play cards like Chrome Mox and Mox Diamond to get ahead, like you're throwing away your cards to get that mana advantage, Gemstone Caverns also fits that bill, as well as it adds a colorless when we don't get it in our opening hand for our Eldrazi's. Valor Stronghold, good way to recur our best creatures on top when we're top decking. It really improves our top decks with whatever our best creature is in the yard. And then I want to talk a little bit about these 2. So there's 2 here. We'll start with Castle Lochwing. It enters tapped unless you control a swamp. Adds a black. 3, tap it, draw a card. You lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. Now, when we're in top decking situations, right, because we're dumping our cards as fast as we can, this can, draw a card, lose 1. Now, it's better if you have the Uber Mask or something because you don't lose any, but it is a way just to keep us drawing cards when we have all this mana and nothing to do with it. And along those lines, I wanted to bring up what I would almost call the secret card in the deck, the War Room. It's very similar. It adds a colorless instead of a black, and then 3 and tap it. Pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity, which is 0, and draw a card. So it doesn't have this lose a life downside. It is strictly just 3 colorless, draw a card. So I really like War Room in this deck. I think maybe it's off some people's radars because it has this commander text in it, but you don't have to worry about that. War Room, really good card in this deck. Just talking about some of the fast mana in the deck here, we obviously have the pointed fast mana in Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, and Sol Ring. We have some non-pointed mana acceleration in our Chrome Mox, where we're throwing cards away. We exile the card when it comes in, simply to get ahead of the curve. Same with Mox Diamond, just throwing out extra lands. Grim Monolith, again, it's somewhat this one usability of pay 2, next turn use it for 3 to dump something big ahead of the curve. And then our 1 spell-based Dark Ritual, really good. It fixed it. One of the problems the medium decks in black sometimes have is black is very pip heavy. Dark Ritual can really help that. Of course, I've constructed this deck with the Mana Crypt mana in mind, this 2 colorless, the Ancient Tomb mana. So that's our mana acceleration. Very important part of this deck. I'm playing a couple equipment in this deck, 2 swords and a Batterskull. the Sword of Feast and Famine, Fire and Ice, and a Batterskull. The reason we're playing these three in particular, Batterskull comes with a creature. So typically you'll see Batterskull in Stoneforge Mystic decks. We're playing it here just because we can get to 5 mana easily. Playing a creature with lifelink and vigilance, pretty good in a black deck where you're dealing damage to yourself for effects. And being able to return it and recast it with all our mana, really helpful. The Sword of Fire and Ice, it is a way to get through creatures. It is a way to draw extra cards and shoot things. So really good. If you haven't played it, you'll soon know. The Sword of Fire and Ice, Sword of Feast and Famine. This is, again, a discard effect when it hits your opponent, and you get to untap your land. So you get to double the effect of your mana each turn. Well, your lands, not necessarily your Soul Rings. But these are the three equipment I went with. I think if you wanted to cut cards, you could cut some of the equipment and just put in more demons. But I really like these equipment as a way to put our guys over the top who are already pretty big, pretty up there. And then I have these two cards here as some of our control cards, somewhat our prison cards, but again, don't think of this as a prison deck. Uba Mask is a way to combat our opponents who are playing combo. The only real weird way we have to deal with it is discard effects, and of course you can't discard the top of their deck. Uber Mask helps solve that problem because they can't keep cards in their hand. It's a symmetrical effect, so it's going to affect you as well. But you're going to be playing, at the time you play this, you're going to have 4 mana. So you're already going to have most of your deck available to you, casting things immediately, playing your lands immediately. And any of your control opponents, they draw a counterspell, well, it's useless that turn, and then it's just going to stay exiled. I really like Uba Mask. Don't think of it as a prison card in this deck, just think of it as a control deck, or against control decks. And it really works well with our ward creatures, because if they're empty-handed, every draw step they aren't drawing an extra card. They're just exiling the top, so they can't pay that additional cost. That's why I really like Uba Mask in this deck. And Court of Ambition as well. You're going to become the Monarch. You're going to be forcing them to discard. You're going to be flying over with guys, trampling over with guys. They're going to be losing 6 or discarding 2. If they can't discard 2, they just lose 6. So this is a really fast clock. I really like the Court. So here are some more utility type spells. We have the Profane Tutor, the 1 tutor in our deck. I think this is the best tutor we can play because we can get it early with our mana acceleration. So you could even do a turn 1 Profane Tutor, get a couple turns to figure out what you'd want to get your fast mana like Soul Ring, get a bomb if you already have the fast mana, and then Animate Dead. Easy way to recur any of our things that have died. Really nice effect. Some of our other more utility cards is the Liliana, where if we're hellbent or trying to get them hellbent, the +1 really works well. We can make them sacrifice a creature. And then our answer to enchantments is the -6, which is sometimes relevant. Liliana, the Last Hope, really good way to get rid of creatures that our opponents are playing, or make sure our guys are getting through. With that first ability, we can raise dead a creature with the -2, and then the -7 is zombies for the rest of the game. Karn, this is one of our card advantage guys. I think the ability, we're playing a lot of mana rocks and just different artifacts, so making tokens, I always say don't forget about that ability, because that ability can just get them dead really quick. Otherwise, putting cards into our hand instead of drawing them is important, and it's kind of nice. So Karn, good black draw spell in this deck, despite being colorless. There is one other Planeswalker, but he was in the creature section, so I'm sure you saw him there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of our removal spells. Toxic Deluge is our 1 board wipe in the deck. I considered Languish. I considered Dead of Winter. I think Toxic Deluge is the best simply because we can choose what we need to set it at, where something like Dead of Winter might kill your best guys if you're late game. Languish is pretty good, but the fact that it costs 4, you can't play around, get Octigue, you can't, you can't set it. That's really why Toxic Deluge is the best. Bloodjuice Thirst. I really like this card as a way to get rid of creatures or planeswalkers, and that flexibility is why it gets a spot. Fatal Push. This one's close, but really, you just want to survive the early game. Make sure your Ancient Tombs aren't killing you, and remove the early threats that your opponents are playing. So I really like Fatal Push here, even if our ability to hit Revolt is limited to a couple fetch lands, and then if our creatures die. Eliminate, really good as well for early removal or getting rid of Teferis. Infernal Grasp, this is a new one. It is unconditional removal, just destroy target creature, and you do lose 2 life. And then Baleful Mastery, again, it's a little flexible. We have a lot of mana, so it's not unlikely that we can just pay the normal cost. But if we really need to exile some creature or planeswalker, that's an option. Now, I'll just set these aside. All of our discard spells. These are all, well, some are targeted, so like Duress, Inquisition, Thoughtseize. I think often the 3 best discard spells you could play. Another one I've played is Agonizing Remorse. Now, one of the reasons we're playing this is because you can choose a card from a graveyard, just to give you some graveyard control. And Collective Brutality. Again, against the red decks where you're feeling really pressured, just being able to discard multiple cards to get, kill a dude, look at their hand or drain some life, really beneficial. And to Turok, now this card is fantastic. You can just wipe your opponent out, and then the Mind Twist. Very similar lines, just discarding at random. It's not as good as targeted. You would rather target, but the ability to just randomly hit lands from your opponent that they were relying on, really strong ability. Very frustrating at times. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you have any ideas you want for deck techs or something you want me to cover, let me know. I'm hoping to keep doing this for a while, at least until I run out of ideas. So thanks again. Have a good one.